Identity theft feels different when it's family. I'm Claire, 32, a forensic accountant working for a mid-sized firm in Connecticut. I analyze financial records for a living, finding discrepancies and following money trails. Ironic, right? I couldn't see what was happening in my own financial life. Last month, I sat across from Richard Benson, the bank manager at First Capital Mortgage. I'd prepared for this meeting for weeks, spreadsheets of my savings, investment portfolio performance, tax returns from the last 5 years. My credit score was 782. I'd saved for 7 years for the down payment on my dream house, a small craftsman with a reading nook and garden space in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing extravagant, just mine. Miss Wilson, there seems to be a problem with your application, Richard said, studying his computer screen with a frown. I straightened in my chair. A problem? My credit score is excellent, and I've included documentation for the 20% down payment. What's the issue? He cleared his throat. According to our records, you already have a substantial business loan that wasn't disclosed on your application. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I don't have any business loans. Richard turned his monitor so I could see the screen. This loan was taken out 14 months ago. It's for $87,000 under your name and social security number for a business called Thompson Family Ventures. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Thompson, my maiden name. I stared at the document, unable to speak. The co-signers are listed as Margaret and Robert Thompson. He looked at me expectantly. Your parents? I assume? I froze. Completely froze. My parents had taken out a loan in my name without telling me. There must be some mistake, I managed to say, my voice suddenly hoarse. I'm afraid not. The loan is currently in good standing, but it represents a significant debt obligation that affects your debt-to-income ratio. We can't approve your mortgage application with this outstanding liability. I don't remember much of what happened next. Richard was saying something about reapplying if the loan situation changed, but his voice sounded distant, underwater. I thanked him mechanically, gathered my perfectly prepared documents, and walked out to my car. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. Then I called my office and took the rest of the day off. I drove straight to my parents' house in the suburb where I grew up, just 30 minutes away. Mom was in the kitchen when I walked in, kneading dough for her famous cinnamon rolls. Dad was still at work. He ran a moderately successful insurance agency. My brother Michael was 8 years older than me and lived 3 states away with his new wife, Vanessa. Claire, what a nice surprise, Mom said, wiping flour from her hands. Her smile faltered when she saw my face. What's wrong, honey? I placed my mortgage rejection letter on the counter. I just came from the bank. They denied my mortgage application because apparently I have a business loan for $87,000 that I never took out. The loan documents list you and Dad as co-signers. Mom's face changed. Not with shock or confusion, with resignation. She knew exactly what I was talking about. Why don't you sit down? She said quietly. I don't want to sit down. I want to know why there's a loan in my name that I never applied for. She sighed, looking down at her dough. Your brother needed it for his honeymoon and to put a down payment on their house. His credit wasn't good enough after that business venture that didn't work out, so I signed for you. I felt like I'd been slapped. You? Signed for me? You forged my signature on loan documents. We didn't think it would affect you. Robert and I make all the payments. Michael sends us money when he can. When he can, I repeated, my voice rising. You committed fraud using my identity, and you didn't think it would affect me. Don't be so dramatic, Claire. We're family. We helped you through college, didn't we? Michael needed this. You know how important appearances are to Vanessa's family. They needed a nice house, a proper honeymoon. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you ruined my credit, committed identity theft, and cost me my house because Michael and Vanessa needed a fancy honeymoon. We didn't ruin anything. The payments are up to date. Except I just lost the house I've been saving for because of a debt I never knew about. I was shouting now, something I rarely did. Do you understand that what you did is illegal? Mom rolled her eyes. For goodness sake, Claire. Nobody's going to press charges against family. We'll figure something out about your house. Figure something out? Like what? Are you going to pay off an $87,000 loan immediately so I can reapply? Her silence told me everything. Does Dad know about this? I asked. Of course he knows. He co-signed too. We're a family, Claire. We look out for each other. No, I said, my voice suddenly quiet. What you did wasn't looking out for me. It was sacrificing my financial future for Michael's. Again, I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Mom called after me. "To fix what you broke." I drove straight to my apartment, called in sick for the next day, and spent the entire evening researching identity theft by family members. By midnight, I had a plan. I contacted 3 different lawyers the next morning and scheduled consultations with all of them. I chose Patricia Reeves, a no-nonsense attorney specializing in identity theft cases. She listened to my story without interruption, taking notes in a leather-bound notebook. "Your parents committed fraud," she said when I finished. "The fact that they're your family doesn't change that. You have options, but none of them are painless. Are you prepared for what this might do to your family relationships?" I thought about the house I'd lost, about the 7 years of careful saving, about Mom's casual dismissal of what she'd done. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." Over the next 2 weeks, Patricia helped me document everything. We gathered the loan paperwork, my credit reports, the mortgage rejection letter. She drafted a formal letter to my parents detailing the legal implications of what they had done and outlining my demands. Either they pay off the fraudulent loan immediately, or I would file a police report for identity theft and pursue legal action against them. 2 weeks after my visit to my parents' house, I sent Patricia's bill, $3,200 for her services so far, to my parents' home address, along with her letter. Then I waited. The phone call came that evening. It was Dad, his voice tight with anger. "What the hell is this, Claire? A lawyer? A bill? Are you threatening to sue your own parents?" "I'm not threatening anything, Dad. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Either you and Mom pay off that fraudulent loan by the end of the month, or I'm filing a police report. We can't possibly pay off that amount that quickly. Your mother told you, we're making the payments. This is family business, not something for lawyers." "It became a legal issue when you forged my signature on loan documents," I replied, surprised by how steady my voice was. "And it stopped being just family business when it cost me my house." "So what? You're going to ruin your brother's life. Get your own parents arrested. All for a house you can just buy later." That's when I realized that, to my family, my needs would always come second to my brother's. My sacrifices were expected, his were unthinkable. "I'm not ruining anyone's life, Dad. You and Mom did that when you decided to commit fraud. I'm just refusing to be the victim of it." I hung up and turned off my phone. I knew there would be more calls, more guilt trips, more attempts to make me feel like I was overreacting. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to back down. That night, I received an email from Michael, the first contact I'd had with him in months. The subject line read simply, "What are you doing?" I opened it, expecting anger, accusations. Instead, I found a short message that chilled me to the bone. "Claire, Mom called me crying. Whatever you think you're doing, you need to stop. They took out that loan to help me, yes, but also because of your medical bills from 2021. You don't remember because you were so sick, but they covered everything. If you go through with this, you're not just hurting them. You're destroying our entire family. Think about what you're doing. Medical bills from 2021? I hadn't been hospitalized in 2021. I hadn't even been seriously ill. It was a complete fabrication." I forwarded the email to Patricia with a simple note. "They're now fabricating stories to justify the fraud. Proceed as planned." Then I made a cup of tea and sat by my window, watching the city lights blink on as evening fell. I felt strangely calm. The choice had been made, the wheels were in motion, and I was finally standing up for myself. The next morning, my phone had 17 missed calls, 5 from Dad, 7 from Mom, 3 from Michael, and 2 from my Aunt Susan, Mom's sister. I ignored them all and went to work. As a forensic accountant, I spend my days tracing financial discrepancies and building evidence for cases of embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat at my desk, reviewing a case involving an office manager who had diverted company funds to a fictitious vendor. This was what I did for a living: follow the money, find the lies. Now I needed to apply those same skills to my own family. During my lunch break, I called the bank that issued the business loan. After navigating the automated system and verifying my identity, I was connected to a loan officer. "I'm calling about a business loan under the name Thompson Family Ventures," I explained. "I need to understand the application process and get copies of all documentation." "Of course, Ms. Thompson. I can help with that. I'm showing that this loan was processed through our Westbrook branch. The application was submitted in person. Can you tell me who submitted it?" According to our records, it was initiated by Robert Thompson, with co-signers Margaret Thompson and, he paused, yourself, Claire Thompson. And do you have the original signed documents? Yes, we maintain those records. Would you like copies sent to you? Please. To my home address, not the business address listed on the application. After hanging up, I called Patricia. I've requested the original loan documents, I told her. Once we have those, we'll have proof of the forged signature. Good, she replied. In the meantime, I've drafted a formal cease and desist letter to your parents regarding any communication about your financial information to third parties. Your brother's email suggests they're spreading misinformation, which could be considered defamation. I sighed. They're trying to rewrite history. Michael's email claimed the loan was partly for my medical bills, which is completely false. I wasn't even sick in 2021. Family financial fraud often involves gaslighting, Patricia said matter-of-factly. They're hoping to make you doubt your own memory or feel guilty enough to back down. After work, I stopped at a locksmith and had my apartment locks changed. I wasn't taking any chances. My parents had a spare key for emergencies, but given the circumstances, I couldn't trust them not to enter my apartment when I wasn't home. When I finally checked my messages that evening, they ranged from pleading to threatening. Mom's latest voicemail was tearful. Claire, honey, please call us back. We need to discuss this as a family. You're blowing this whole thing out of proportion. Dad's was more direct. This is ridiculous, Claire. You're acting like we're criminals when all we did was help your brother. If you go through with this, you'll regret it. Family should come first. Michael's messages grew increasingly hostile. What is wrong with you? Mom and Dad have done everything for you, and this is how you repay them. By threatening them with legal action. You need to grow up and realize that sometimes family needs to help each other out. I deleted them all and blocked their numbers. I needed space to think clearly, without the constant barrage of guilt and manipulation. 3 days later, the loan documents arrived. I spread them out on my dining table, my hands trembling slightly. There it was, my signature on the final page. It wasn't even a good forgery. Mom had signed my name countless times over the years, field trip permission slips when she was too busy to read them, birthday cards to distant relatives when I forgot, even a college application form once when I was sick with the flu. She knew my signature, but she hadn't bothered to make this one convincing. I took photos of everything and sent them to Patricia, then called her. It's definitely forged, I said, and not even carefully. This is good for our case, she replied. I've also been looking into this Thompson Family Ventures. Did you know it's registered as an actual LLC? I nearly dropped my phone. What? No, I had no idea. It was filed 14 months ago, the same time as the loan. The registered members are Robert Thompson, Margaret Thompson, Michael Thompson, and you. But I know. Another forgery, almost certainly. I've requested those documents as well. Claire, this goes beyond just the loan. They created a business entity in your name without your knowledge. That's a separate offense. I sat down heavily. What does this mean? It means they've created a paper trail of fraud that strengthens our position. But it also raises questions about what this business actually does. Have you checked your tax returns to see if they filed anything for this LLC under your name? I hadn't even considered that possibility. No, but I will right now. I hung up and immediately logged into the IRS website to review my tax transcripts. Sure enough, there was a Schedule K-1 attached to my return from the previous year, a form for reporting income from partnerships and LLCs. Thompson Family Ventures had reported a loss of $12,000, which had actually reduced my tax liability. They had filed tax documents in my name. The violations just kept mounting. I forwarded everything to Patricia and then did something I'd been avoiding. I looked up Thompson Family Ventures online. The business had a simple website, describing itself as a family-owned investment company specializing in real estate opportunities. There were no specific properties mentioned, no details about actual investments, just vague language and stock photos of happy families in front of houses. But the contact information made my blood run cold. The listed email address was my old Gmail account, one I had stopped using years ago but never formally closed. And the phone number had a familiar pattern. It was just one digit off from my current cell number. They had created a shadow version of me for their business. I called Patricia again. I found the business website. They're using variations of my contact information. That's another clear violation, she said. I'm adding it to our documentation. Claire, I need to ask you something important. Are you absolutely certain you want to pursue this legally? Once we file a police report, there's no going back. Your parents could face serious charges. I thought about Mom in the kitchen, so casually admitting to identity theft. I thought about Dad's angry call, making me the villain for protecting myself. I thought about Michael's lies about medical bills. I'm certain, I said. They've had multiple opportunities to make this right. They chose not to. All right. I'll prepare the police report. In the meantime, I've sent the cease and desist letter to your parents. They should receive it tomorrow. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet apartment, staring out the window at the city lights. I should have felt something. Anger, vindication, guilt, grief. Instead, I felt oddly empty, as if I were watching someone else's family drama unfold. The next day, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Please don't do this to your family." It was from Vanessa, Michael's wife. "Claire, I'm begging you to reconsider what you're doing. Michael is devastated. Your parents are beside themselves. Yes, they made a mistake, but they did it out of love for their son. The loan helped us buy our home and start our lives together. We've been making the payments through your parents every month. No one ever intended for you to be affected by this. Please, for the sake of your family, drop this vendetta before someone gets really hurt." Vendetta. As if protecting myself from fraud was an act of revenge rather than self-preservation. I forwarded the email to Patricia without responding and went back to work. That evening, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole and saw my father standing in the hallway, his face drawn with stress. I hesitated, then opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Claire," he said, his voice strained. "We need to talk. I have nothing to say that hasn't already been said through my lawyer. For God's sake, can we drop the lawyer talk for 5 minutes? You're my daughter. We're family. Family doesn't commit identity theft against family, Dad." He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Look, we made a mistake. We should have talked to you first. But Michael was in a tough spot, and we needed to act quickly. Vanessa's parents were pressuring them about the wedding and house. You know how they are. Everything just snowballed. So you decided to sacrifice my financial future for Michael's image in front of his in-laws. It wasn't like that. We never thought it would affect you. We've been making all the payments. Except it did affect me. I lost my house because of what you did." Dad's expression hardened. "You didn't lose anything. You can just wait a little longer. Save a bit more. Michael would have lost his wife, his dignity. It's not the same thing." And there it was, the family hierarchy spelled out plainly. Michael's needs would always come first. My sacrifices were expected, required, invisible. "I think you should leave," I said quietly. "Claire, please. Your mother is a wreck. She can barely get out of bed. Is that what you wanted? To punish us?" What I wanted was for my parents to respect me enough not to commit fraud in my name. What I wanted was for my brother not to lie about medical bills that never existed. What I wanted was a family that valued me as much as they value Michael. Dad's face flushed with anger. "We've done everything for you. Paid for your education. Supported you through every phase of your life. And now you think that gives you the right to steal my identity? That's not how it works, Dad. So what happens now? You get us arrested, destroy our reputation in the community, ruin your brother's marriage, all for what? To prove a point. To protect myself." I corrected him. "And to make sure you understand that actions have consequences, even within families, especially within families." Dad shook his head, his disappointment palpable. "Your mother and I don't recognize who you've become. The Claire we raised would never do this to her family." As he turned to leave, I called after him. The parents I thought I had would never have done this to their daughter. I closed the door and leaned against it, listening to his footsteps retreat down the hall. My hands were shaking, but my resolve remained firm. The next morning, I met with Patricia to file the police report. I brought all the documentation, the forged loan documents, the LLC registration, the tax filings, the business website information. As I signed my statement, the officer taking the report looked at me with a mix of sympathy and discomfort. "You understand that this could result in criminal charges against your parents?" he asked. "I do. Family fraud cases are complicated. Are you absolutely sure you want to proceed?" I met his gaze steadily. "Yes, I'm sure." As I left the police station, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We just got a call from the police. I hope you're happy now. Michael." I blocked that number too and went to work, where I buried myself in financial spreadsheets and audit reports, finding comfort in their orderly rows and columns. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't manipulate. Numbers didn't betray. Late that afternoon, my supervisor called me into her office. "Claire," she said, her expression concerned, "I received a strange call from your mother today. She seemed very upset and was saying some concerning things about your mental health. Something about you fabricating stories of identity theft and having delusions about your family. Is everything okay?" My stomach clenched. They were trying to discredit me professionally now. "Everything is not okay," I replied carefully. "My parents committed identity fraud using my name, and now they're attempting to undermine me because I've reported it to the authorities. I apologize that they've brought this to my workplace." My supervisor's eyebrows rose. "I see. Well, if you need any support or time off, just let me know." I thanked her and returned to my desk, my hands shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. How far were they willing to go to avoid responsibility? First, the fake medical bill story. Now attempts to paint me as mentally unstable. That evening, I received an email notification that someone had attempted to access my personal email account. The recovery phone number they tried to use was my mother's. They were escalating, and I needed to be prepared for whatever came next. The following week moved in slow motion. My parents were formally interviewed by the police, and preliminary fraud charges were being considered by the district attorney's office. Patricia kept me updated on the legal proceedings, but I remained detached, almost clinical about the whole process. It was as if I were working on a case for a client rather than watching my own family implode. I changed all my passwords, set up two-factor authentication on every account, and placed credit freezes with all 3 major credit bureaus. I couldn't afford to leave any vulnerabilities open. At work, I maintained my professional composure, though I noticed concerned glances from colleagues. Word had gotten around about my mother's call to my supervisor. I was grateful when Eliza, our division head, called me into her office on Thursday afternoon. "Claire, I want you to know that we fully support you," she said, closing her door for privacy. "Your work has always been impeccable, and your integrity is beyond question. Whatever's happening in your personal life, don't worry about it affecting your position here." I felt a rush of relief. "Thank you, Eliza. I appreciate that more than you know. I understand you specialize in financial fraud cases," she continued. "It must be uniquely challenging to deal with something similar in your personal life." I managed a tight smile. "The irony isn't lost on me." She nodded thoughtfully. "Take whatever time you need. And Claire, document everything. In these situations, contemporaneous records are invaluable." I was already doing that, keeping a detailed journal of every interaction, every attempt at contact, every manipulation tactic. The accountant in me couldn't help creating a paper trail. That evening, Patricia called with an update. "The DA's office is taking this case seriously," she said. "The business loan fraud is clear-cut, but they're also investigating the LLC formation, tax filings, and potential mail fraud from using your contact information for the business." "What happens next?" I asked. "Your parents have hired an attorney, Martin Goldstein. He's proposed a settlement to avoid criminal charges. They're offering to pay off the loan immediately, dissolve the LLC, and provide financial compensation for your legal fees and the lost house opportunity." I sat down, suddenly dizzy. "They can pay off the loan immediately, all $87,000 of it." "Apparently so," which raises questions about why they didn't do that when you first confronted them. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about control, about maintaining the family dynamic where Michael's needs trumped mine, where my compliance was expected without question. "What do you think I should do?" I asked Patricia. From a purely legal standpoint, this offer resolves your immediate concerns. The loan would be paid off, clearing your credit. You'd be removed from the fraudulent business entity. You'd receive compensation that could help you secure another house. But it doesn't address the breach of trust or provide any real accountability. Your parents would avoid criminal charges, which means no formal record of what they did, and there's nothing to prevent them from trying something similar in the future. I thought about it. I need time to consider this. Of course. Take the weekend to think it over. We don't need to respond until Monday. After hanging up, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of pink and gold. I should have felt victorious. My parents were offering everything I had initially demanded, and more. I could get my financial life back on track, maybe even find another house I loved. So why did it feel hollow? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Claire, it's Aunt Susan. Please call me. I'm worried about you." I hesitated, then called her back. Aunt Susan had always been kind to me, less entangled in the family dynamics that elevated Michael above all else. "Claire, thank goodness," she answered immediately. "I've been so concerned. Your mother is in terrible shape. She's barely eating. Your father looks like he's aged 10 years. And Michael is threatening to cut ties with them if they pay that settlement. What's happening with all of you?" I gave her a condensed version of events. The fraudulent loan, the forged documents, the mortgage denial, the escalating tactics after I confronted them. "Oh, Claire," she sighed when I finished. "What a mess. I had no idea it was this bad. They committed fraud, Aunt Susan, multiple counts of it, and when I called them on it, they tried to gaslight me, discredit me at work, and hack my accounts." "I believe you," she said, surprising me. "Your mother has she's always had different standards for you and Michael. I've noticed it since you were children." The simple acknowledgement of this long-standing dynamic brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Have you spoken with Michael directly?" she asked. "He sent manipulative messages and fabricated a story about medical bills that never existed. I blocked his number." "That's concerning. Look, I don't want to overstep, but would you be open to meeting with me? Just us, neutral ground. I'd like to better understand everything that's happened." I agreed to meet her for coffee the next morning at a cafe downtown. After we hung up, I texted Patricia to let her know about the meeting, just to maintain the documentation trail. Aunt Susan was already waiting when I arrived at the cafe, looking elegant but tired in a navy blazer. She hugged me tightly. "You look exhausted," she said, studying my face. "Are you sleeping?" "Not much," I admitted. "It's been a difficult few weeks." We ordered coffee and found a quiet corner table. Susan didn't waste time. "I spoke with your mother last night," she began. "So she's a wreck, Claire. She keeps saying she was just trying to help Michael, that she never meant to hurt you. But she did hurt me. And when confronted, instead of making it right, they all doubled down. They tried to make me the villain for protecting myself." Susan nodded slowly. "I believe that your mother has blind spots when it comes to Michael. Always has. Remember when he crashed your car in high school, and somehow you ended up grounded for letting him drive it?" I did remember. It was one of countless examples where Michael's mistakes became my responsibility. "There's something else you should know," Susan continued, lowering her voice. "This isn't the first time they've done something like this." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "What do you mean?" 4 years ago, your cousin Jennifer found out your parents had opened credit cards in her name. They'd run up about $30,000 in debt, again, supposedly for something Michael needed. Jennifer was furious, but your father paid it all off immediately and begged her not to tell anyone. She agreed, partly out of family loyalty, partly because she was embarrassed. I set my cup down carefully. "They did this before? To Jennifer?" "Yes, and I suspect there may be others. Your father manages insurance policies for half the extended family. He has access to everyone's social security numbers, birth dates, all the information needed for identity theft." My mind was racing. "Do you think this is a pattern?" "I don't know for certain, but I do know that your parents have enabled Michael his entire life, and it's escalated over time. The fact that they can suddenly afford to pay off an $87,000 loan raises questions about their finances that I'm not comfortable with." I thought about my forensic accounting work, how financial crimes rarely occurred in isolation, how they typically revealed patterns of behavior that escalated over time. "Have you spoken to Jennifer recently?" I asked. "Last month at her daughter's birthday party. She seemed anxious around your parents, kept her distance. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now I wonder." I made a mental note to contact Jennifer. If my parents had victimized other family members, that changed the calculus considerably. "What are you going to do about the settlement offer?" Susan asked. "I'm still deciding. Part of me wants this all to go away. Take the money, fix my credit, move on. But another part feels like that just enables them to continue this behavior." Susan reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you're right to stand your ground. What they did was wrong, legally and morally. And their response since you confronted them has been even worse." After coffee, I thanked Susan for her honesty and headed home with a clearer sense of what I needed to do. I called Jennifer and left a voicemail asking her to contact me about an important family matter. She called back within the hour, her voice wary. Claire, is everything okay? Not really. I need to ask you something, and I'd appreciate your honesty. Did my parents ever open credit accounts in your name without your permission? The silence that followed told me everything. How did you find out? She finally asked. I explained my situation briefly. Jennifer sighed heavily. They swore it would never happen again. They said it was a one-time emergency for Michael. When exactly did this happen to you? I asked. 4 years ago. They opened 3 credit cards in my name and maxed them all out, about $32,000 total. Uncle Robert paid it all off as soon as I confronted them. But it was disturbing. Aunt Margaret cried, said I was cruel for even considering reporting them. Michael called me a selfish witch who didn't care about family. Did they tell you what the money was for? Michael's gambling debts and supposedly, though I later heard through family gossip that he and Vanessa took a luxury cruise around that time. I felt sick. Jennifer, I'm so sorry they did that to you. I should have reported it, she said quietly. And maybe then they wouldn't have done the same thing to you. This isn't your fault. They're the ones who made these choices. After speaking with Jennifer, I called Patricia and asked her to come to my apartment the next day. I needed to discuss the settlement offer with all this new information in mind. Patricia arrived Sunday afternoon, dressed casually in jeans and a blazer, legal pad in hand. I explained everything I'd learned from Susan and Jennifer. This changes things significantly, she said, taking notes. If there's a pattern of identity theft targeting multiple family members, the DA would definitely want that information. I think I need to reject the settlement offer, I said. Patricia looked up from her notes. Are you sure? It would resolve your immediate financial concerns. But it wouldn't stop them from doing this again, to me or to someone else in the family. And it feels like they're trying to buy their way out of accountability, just like they did with Jennifer. She nodded. I understand. If that's your decision, I'll communicate it to their attorney tomorrow. But Claire, you should prepare yourself. This means the criminal investigation will proceed, and things could get ugly. Uglier than they already are? Unfortunately, yes. Family fraud cases often get very messy when they go to court. Your parents might become more desperate as criminal charges become a real possibility. I thought about that. Can we use the settlement offer as leverage? Maybe a modified agreement where they not only pay off the loan and compensate me, but also agree to financial monitoring to prevent future fraud. Patricia considered this. That's an interesting approach. We could propose structured financial oversight as part of a settlement. It wouldn't be as formal as court-ordered monitoring, but it might be a middle ground that addresses your concerns about recurrence. We spent the next 2 hours drafting a counter-proposal. My terms were clear: full loan repayment, compensation for my losses, removal of my name from all fraudulent documents, and, most importantly, agreement to financial monitoring by a third-party trustee for 5 years, with any violation resulting in immediate reporting to authorities. This is unusual, Patricia admitted when we finished. But given the circumstances, it's a reasonable compromise between dropping the charges entirely and pursuing full criminal prosecution. That evening, I received a call from Michael. Against my better judgment, I answered. What do you want, Michael? Claire, what the hell are you doing? His voice was slurred. He'd been drinking. Do you know what this is doing to Mom and Dad? They can barely function. Dad's talking about early retirement because he's afraid of what people will think if this gets out. They committed fraud, Michael, multiple times, to multiple family members, all to finance your lifestyle. That's bull. They helped me when I needed it, like parents are supposed to do, by stealing other people's identities. That's not help. That's crime. He scoffed. Always so dramatic. Mom and Dad offered to pay everything back, but that's not good enough for you, is it? You always need to be the perfect one, the victim, the martyr. They offered to pay it back only after they got caught and faced criminal charges, and they did the same thing to Jennifer 4 years ago, opened credit cards in her name for your gambling debts. Michael went silent for a moment. Jennifer needs to mind her own business. It became her business when our parents stole her identity, just like it became my business when they stole mine. Look, his voice softened, attempting a new tactic. I know you're upset about the house thing. What if I help you with the down payment for a new place? Vanessa and I can contribute something. We're family, Claire. We should be solving this together. I almost laughed at the absurdity. With what money, Michael? The money our parents stole in my name? Or are you planning to take out another fraudulent loan? You're being impossible. Mom was right. You've changed. The sister I grew up with would never do this to her family. The brother I grew up with wouldn't let our parents commit crimes in my name to fund his lifestyle. I guess we've both changed. I hung up and blocked his number again. Then I emailed Patricia. I'm definitely rejecting the original settlement. Let's proceed with our counteroffer. If they refuse, we move forward with the criminal case. Monday morning brought a flurry of activity. Patricia submitted our counterproposal to my parents' attorney. I contacted the police detective handling the case and mentioned the new information about Jennifer, who had agreed to provide a statement. I went to work and buried myself in spreadsheets, finding comfort in their orderly logic. By afternoon, Patricia called with news. Your parents. Attorney rejected our counterproposal. Specifically, they refused the financial monitoring provision. They've increased the compensation offer instead, thinking money is the issue. It's not, I said firmly. The monitoring is non-negotiable. Without it, there's nothing to prevent them from doing this again. I explained that. Their attorney suggests a family mediation session instead. All parties in one room with a professional mediator to work through the issues. I considered this. Would you be there? Absolutely. I wouldn't advise you to meet with them without representation. Then I'll do it. One session. If we can't reach an agreement that includes monitoring, we proceed with the criminal case. The mediation was scheduled for Wednesday afternoon at a neutral office downtown. I took the day off work and dressed carefully in a charcoal gray suit, my professional armor. Patricia met me in the lobby, her briefcase in hand. Remember, she said quietly as we rode the elevator, stay calm, stay focused on the facts, and don't let them derail the conversation with emotional appeals. This is about financial fraud, not family feelings. I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. The mediator, Dr. Elena Santos, was a composed woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and a gentle but authoritative manner. She explained the ground rules. Each party would have time to speak uninterrupted, followed by guided discussion of potential resolutions. My parents sat across the table, looking older and more tired than I remembered. Dad was wearing his best suit, the one reserved for important client meetings. Mom had clearly lost weight, her wedding ring loose on her finger. Their attorney, Martin Goldstein, sat between them, a folder of documents before him. Michael and Vanessa sat to their right. Michael glared at me. Vanessa studied her manicure. Neither was named in the legal proceedings, but they had insisted on attending. Dr. Santos asked me to speak first. I outlined the facts dispassionately: the fraudulent loan, the forged documents, the LLC formation, the tax filings, the discovery of similar fraud against Jennifer, the escalating attempts to manipulate and discredit me after I confronted them. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue as I spoke. Dad stared at the table. Michael's jaw clenched tighter with each sentence. When I finished, Dr. Santos turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, would you like to respond? Dad cleared his throat. Claire is our daughter and we love her. Yes, we made a mistake. We should have discussed the loan with her before proceeding. But everything we did was for our family, to help Michael establish himself, to maintain our family's standing in the community. We never intended to hurt Claire. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, I murmured, earning a warning glance from Patricia. Mom spoke next, her voice quavering. Claire, honey, I don't understand why you're doing this. We raised you, supported you, loved you unconditionally. Now you're threatening to send us to jail for trying to help your brother. What kind of daughter does that to her parents? The kind whose identity was stolen, I replied evenly. The kind who lost her dream house because of your actions. The kind who was gaslighted and manipulated when she confronted you. Michael leaned forward. This is ridiculous. Mom and Dad have offered to pay back everything. They've offered you extra money for your precious house. What more do you want? Accountability, I said, meeting his gaze. Assurance that this doesn't happen again, to me or to anyone else in the family. Dr. Santos intervened. Let's focus on potential resolutions. Claire has proposed financial monitoring as part of the settlement. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you've rejected this provision. Can you explain why? Dad exchanged glances with his attorney, who nodded slightly. We find the monitoring provision intrusive and unnecessary, Dad said stiffly. We've learned our lesson. This was a one-time error in judgment that we deeply regret. We don't need a third party watching over our finances for 5 years. It wasn't one time, I pointed out. You did the same thing to Jennifer 4 years ago. That was different, Mom interjected. Jennifer was happy to help once we explained the situation. She understood the importance of family loyalty. I almost laughed. She wasn't happy to help. She was coerced and manipulated, just like I was supposed to be. The mediation continued for 3 exhausting hours. My parents offered increasingly larger sums of money but refused to budge on the monitoring. Michael accused me of tearing the family apart for personal gain. Vanessa suggested I needed therapy for my obvious issues with grudge holding. Through it all, I maintained my position. Full loan repayment, compensation for losses, removal from fraudulent documents, and financial monitoring. All 4 components were non-negotiable. Finally, as the session was wrapping up without resolution, Dad leaned forward, his expression grave. Claire, before you proceed with criminal charges, there's something you should know. If this goes to court, it won't just be your mother and me who face consequences. The business loan, some of it went into your account too. I stared at him. What are you talking about? Check your account statements from March of last year. A transfer of $15,000 from Thompson Family Ventures for your consulting services. Patricia immediately intervened. Mr. Thompson, are you saying you transferred money to Claire's account without her knowledge? It's there in black and white, Dad replied, which makes Claire a beneficiary of the very fraud she's reporting. The implication was clear. If I pursued criminal charges, they would try to implicate me as well. I turned to Patricia. I never received that money. I never saw any transfer. We'll verify your bank records immediately, she assured me, then addressed my father. Mr. Thompson, if you fabricated transactions or accessed Claire's accounts without authorization, that's additional fraud. Dad's expression didn't change. Just stating facts. Claire should check her records before making decisions that affect us all. As we left the mediation, I felt shaken but resolute. They're bluffing, I told Patricia. I monitor my accounts carefully. There was no $15,000 deposit. We'll verify everything, she promised. But this threat suggests they're getting desperate. They're trying to create doubt, to make you back down. That evening, I pulled all my bank statements from the previous year and went through them line by line. There was no $15,000 deposit, no transfer from Thompson Family Ventures, nothing unusual at all. I called Patricia to confirm my findings. That's what I expected, she said. It was a bluff, a desperate attempt to create leverage. Claire, I think it's time to make a decision. Do we proceed with the criminal case? I thought about Mom in the kitchen, so casually admitting to identity theft. I thought about Dad's threat in the mediation room. I thought about Michael's entitlement and Jennifer's violation. Yes, I said finally. We proceed. No more negotiation, no more mediation. They've had every opportunity to make this right, and they've chosen manipulation instead. It's time for consequences. As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Susan. Whatever you decide, I support you. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The weight of indecision lifted from my shoulders. The path ahead would be difficult, but it was clear. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sacrificing my needs for my family's comfort. I was standing firm in my own truth, demanding the respect I deserved. It felt like freedom. 3 months later, I stood in the back of the courtroom as my parents accepted a plea deal. The prosecutor had been willing to reduce charges in exchange for full restitution, 2 years of probation, and mandatory financial counseling. Most importantly, they would be subject to court-ordered financial monitoring for 5 years, exactly what I had requested in our failed mediation. I felt no triumph as I watched them sign the paperwork, just a hollow ache where family trust had once resided. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom stared straight ahead, her face a mask of resignation. Michael wasn't present. According to Aunt Susan, he and Vanessa had moved across the country, blaming me for destroying the family. They'd cut contact with everyone except my parents, who still sent them money despite their precarious legal and financial situation. As the proceedings concluded, Patricia touched my arm gently. We should go. The reporters will be outside. The story had made local headlines. Respected insurance agent and wife pleading guilty to identity theft against their own daughter. The coverage painted me as either courageous or cold-hearted, depending on the publication. I'd stopped reading the articles weeks ago. Back at my apartment, I made tea and sat by the window, watching rain trace patterns on the glass. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "It's over. You did what I couldn't. Thank you." The loan had been paid off. My credit was slowly recovering. The fraudulent LLC had been dissolved. I'd received compensation that covered my legal fees and provided a substantial down payment for a new house, smaller than my dream Craftsman, but all mine, free from family entanglement. I'd also discovered, through the investigation, that my parents had used at least 2 other relatives' identities over the years for various financial schemes. Both had been too intimidated to come forward until my case broke the silence. Their matters were being resolved privately, with my parents making restitution under the watchful eye of their probation officer. A week later, a letter arrived from my mother, her familiar handwriting on the envelope. No return address. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. "Claire," it began, "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. What we did was wrong, not just legally, but as your parents. We betrayed your trust in the most fundamental way, then tried to make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. It's taken me these months of counseling to see that clearly. Your father still struggles to understand. He was raised to believe that family comes first, no matter what, and that parents decide what's best. It's hard for him to accept that we were wrong. Michael is angry. He believes we sacrificed ourselves for him, and now he feels obligated to stand by us. I hope someday he'll understand his part in this too. I'm not writing to ask for reconciliation. I'm writing because I need you to know that, despite everything, I'm proud of you. Proud of your strength, your clarity, your unwillingness to be manipulated. You are everything I should have been at your age. Be well, Claire. Live the life you deserve. Mom." I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer. Perhaps someday it would mean something different to me. For now, it was just another piece of evidence in the case of a family broken by lies and favoritism. The following month, I closed on my new house, a modern townhome with large windows and a rooftop garden. As I signed the final paperwork, Richard Benson, the same bank manager who had denied my previous mortgage, smiled across the table. "Congratulations, Ms. Wilson. The house is yours." I felt a surge of quiet satisfaction as I accepted the keys. This milestone was entirely my own, earned through hard work, protected through painful but necessary boundaries. That evening, as I unpacked boxes in my new living room, Aunt Susan called. "How's the new place?" she asked. "It feels right," I replied. "How are they doing?" She understood who I meant. "Managing. Your father's practice is struggling. Many clients left when the news broke. They're selling the house, moving to something smaller. Your mother seems different, more reflective. And Michael? Still blaming everyone but himself. He asked your parents for money last week. They said no for the first time in his life. I absorbed this information without comment. Their choices were no longer my responsibility. Claire, Susan said softly, what you did took incredible courage. Not just standing up to them, but seeing it through. You broke a generational pattern of enabling and denial. That matters. Later, as I arranged books on my new shelves, I found my childhood photo album. I hesitated, then opened it, looking at images of a family that once seemed whole. There we all were, smiling at holidays, posing on vacations, celebrating milestones, a perfect facade concealing dysfunctional dynamics. I didn't hate them. That surprised me the most about this journey. Despite everything, I didn't hate my parents or even Michael. I simply refused to be their victim any longer. My phone buzzed with a text from a colleague inviting me to dinner with friends. "New house celebration?" it read. I smiled and replied affirmatively. As I prepared to leave, I glanced around my new space. Clean, organized, mine. I thought about the forensic accountant I had become, trained to follow money trails and uncover financial deceptions. How ironic that those same skills had forced me to see the truth about my own family. The future stretched before me, unburdened by toxic family obligations. I had lost my parents and brother, yes, but I had found something more valuable. My voice, my boundaries, my self-respect. I locked my front door and stepped out into the evening, ready to celebrate not just a new home, but a new beginning. Sometimes family isn't what you're born into. Sometimes it's what you build after you've stood your ground. And sometimes the strongest thing you can say isn't, "I love you," or even, "I forgive you." Sometimes it's simply, "No, this stops here."